This is Radio VR in Washington, D.C. I'm Kels Hetherington. Lieutenant General Craig Franklin sparked a national controversy about sexual assault in the military when he gave clemency to a top fighter pilot convicted of sexual assault. Franklin, as commander of the 3rd Air Force in Europe, overturned the sexual assault conviction and stopped the pilots being court-martialed for rape. Franklin said the evidence was not substantial enough in the case to support the conviction or the planned court-martial. Now some activists are charging that Franklin's actions in the case and several others will discourage victims from ever coming forward in the future. But is that really the case? Joining us to discuss this and help us to answer this question is Jennifer Norris. She is the main coordinator and a national victim advocate for the Military Rape Crisis Center. Thanks for coming on the radio, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about your role as the coordinator for the state of Maine at the Military Rape Crisis Center.
Well, after I was retired from the military for military sexual trauma due to what happened to me in the service, it was about the time that the Invisible War movie came out, which helped gain some national attention for the issue. And so I decided that I would get involved and help others out so that they wouldn't have to go through the brutal process like I did. I worked at the Military Rape Crisis Center for about over 3 years, and I've just recently left so I can focus on what I learned while working there, so we can apply it to the laws and make some real change here.
So you're not still at the Military Rape Crisis Center, or are you?
No, I just recently left, just like a week ago. And I did that so I could focus on my new endeavor, which is Military Justice for All. I founded a website, and that's where I collect my research, and that's where I'll be putting things down to show exactly what we're talking about as advocates, as far as what the loopholes are, what the overall reasons why people aren't reporting to begin with, including what happened with General Franklin. Yes, that is part of the issue. And so to make some solid changes with what we have learned so that we can do this and get people's, prevented from having PTSD in the first place, prevent these crimes.
So you retired from the military because of a sexual assault case?
Yes. What happened is in the beginning of my career, like most victims of crimes, I was targeted by a higher ranking individual, actually four of them. And after a couple of years of enduring the assaults and being fearful of reporting because I saw what happens to other people when you do report, I finally succumbed to the reporting process so I could get free of the attacks. And with that came huge consequences to my career. In the end, I ended up losing it because I believe that it's not necessarily the crimes themselves that are causing the PTSD to be so compounded. It's in fact the prosecution and the reporting part of reporting sexual assault in the military. Once you do, everybody knows that it happened to you. You have no more confidentiality. People choose sides.
Mm-hmm.
The commander's stuck in the middle trying to determine which person's telling the truth. And like most predators, they're very manipulative. And they've known the commander or the person in charge longer than the victim has because they choose victims for a reason that haven't been in long or have done something wrong. For example, they drank underage, so they might be too fearful to say anything for fear that they would get in trouble.
So,
There's a reason that
yeah.
only 13% reported in 2012.
Now, the military is trying to encourage more people to come forward who are victims and report the cases of sexual assault against them. And the case we want to talk about today is the case involving Franklin. He was the lieutenant general in Europe, and he was overseeing the 3rd Air Force. Now, do you want to introduce the kind of the parameters of the case that has gotten so much press? The case involving a man named Wilkerson. What do you know about that case?
I know a lot. I followed that case very closely because, it is in the Air Force, which is where I served. That case kind of highlighted overall what the problems are with the military justice system. The statistics out of the Department of Defense in 2012 were that they estimate that 26,000 troops have been sexually assaulted or raped. That does not include sexual harassment. Of that number, only 13% reported. The the big catch in the military justice system is that number right there. Why aren't 87% of them reporting? I can give you a few reasons why, based on my own experience and what I've learned while working at the Military Rape Crisis Center. First of all, you have to report the crime to your boss. In this
Mm,
particular case, the boss would have been maybe even Wilkerson, because he's an officer.
yep.
And if it's not Wilkerson, then we have to report to Franklin, again, an officer. And in this particular case, both of them were pilot buddies from way back. And it was a he said, she said case, which is what they bring up every time you do report, which again is another reason that people don't report. They see what happened with this case.
Isn't it important that people have some ability to have the process stopped if they have been wrongly accused?
Yes, that's exactly what we want. We want everyone, whether they be the accused or the accuser, to have their constitutional rights upheld. And in the civilian world, it's ridiculous that you include your boss in on the decision making of a violent crime against a predator. The only reason it appears that the military even wants to maintain control of all these cases is so they can squash it, which is completely backed up with the less than 10% prosecution rate that you see. And what we're saying is, in all cases, there's going to be facts that don't match up, and there's going to be this and there's going to be that, because everybody has their own opinion, especially in a rape case. Because what people don't take into consideration is that the rape is a crime. The assault is a crime of your person. You don't just take it lightly, whether it was a violent act or whether it was done while someone took advantage of you while you were drinking or you were sleeping. It doesn't matter. You were violated, and that begins the process of trauma, the acute stress that comes with the PTSD, which is why you're seeing the PTSD rates so high at the Department of Affairs right now, is because it's not getting dealt with immediately to prevent it from becoming worse.
All right. Now, in the wake of the mass media attention to Franklin and this granting of clemency, Congress has stepped in and made some substantial changes,
Yeah.
including removing the commander's authority to overturn convictions, um, and passed several measures to bolster investigations of sex crimes in the military. Are Hasn't the military gone further than it would have gone had not a guy like Franklin been at the center of this whole media circus?
Yes, they did go farther, which is another reason that we don't necessarily want commanders involved. It seems like this is being used as political tools against each other to take each other out with their careers and stuff. And we don't want commanders put in those positions. They shouldn't be to begin with. Why can't we just have a judicial system handle violent predators and let commanders focus on the war fighting? They're concerned about being taken out politically. I'm concerned for them with this process we have in place right now. And
But
just as I'm concerned about the victims who, don't come forward because they know that everybody's worried about their careers. We don't want anyone to have to worry about their careers. We want to deal with justice and move on with our careers and focus on our warfighting abilities.
I guess my next question for you is why was his treatment of sexual assault cases highlighted by the national media?
Because of the fact that he went in and overturned it afterwards.
But hasn't this
No,
happened before?
yes, it has happened before, but did it happen during a media frenzy of sexual assault in the military? Probably not. That's what's different about now and then is we've come forward and made these actions known to people so that they can then be held accountable because otherwise they're accountable to no one.
Did Franklin have a history of shoving these sexual assault cases under the rug?
Nobody knows that, and that's the problem with what was evidenced with this one particular case is how many cases did he bury if he buried this one too? And we don't want cases to be buried. We want them prosecuted.